Okay, so I couldn't help myself. I started in on the Efco 165, and I am watching Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Yeah. So here we go. We're all set up. That's what she looks like down here. Okay. I got my numbers. All right. With the gasket in place, we had a 55 squish. Without the gasket, 38 squish. So this thing would need machine work, in my opinione. Intake opens at 64 degrees. Whoa, that is low. We want to bump that up to about 78 or so. Could go up to 82 or whatever if I want, and maybe we will. Exhaust opens at 103.5. These numbers changed slightly whenever I took the gasket out. Without the gasket, that's at 105.5. This is at like 65.5, 65 maybe. And then transfers 124. So I got to looking at things, and with that 48 millimeter bore, it brings piston options in play. So this is the piston that came out of it, and it is a dual ring setup. Now I've only got one ring on there, right? I could run it just like this. This right here is a Jansared 630 Meteor piston, and I've marked it right there as where it would free port if I need to cut that skirt, and right here is where the skirt would be if I was wanting to cut the piston in order to raise the duration on the intake. That's how much would have to come off for it to get 78 on the intake timing. The cutouts are wider on this 630 than they are on, they're narrower on this 630. They're wider if you look at them like this, right? So, and the piston is a little bit taller. The wrist pin is the same size, and this is a single ring piston. Now, I weighed them just like this. This is 65 grams with one ring on there, because if I was to run this, it has two rings. So wearing one ring gives me an accurate weight in comparison to this with no ring at all. See what I'm saying? So if I was to take this ring off, it would give this an unfair advantage. So with them weighed like this to this is 65 grams, this is 64 grams. The skirt is slightly longer and the crown is ever so slightly taller. So what is happening is that skirt is long enough to where it binds on the crankshaft, so I have to take some off of the skirt no matter what. And with the crown being slightly taller, without a base gasket, it puts me at 19 thousandths squish, which is more than I want. So I might cut some off of the top of that crown, just a little bit, so that I can have 30 thousandths squish. Yes, we all know that the big talking point with these things, people like to get 20 thousandths squish, so I might as well just leave it. And I might do that. But I think I'll probably take about 10 thousandths off of the crown of this piston. That way, I'm running about 28 thousandths squish. 28 to 30 thousandths squish, something like that. Loose is fast. All right, and don't need that much compression is my thoughts. The skirt, however, I think I am going to cut the bejesus out of this skirt. And whenever I do that, we'll go from 64 grams to, my guess is about 62 or maybe even 61 grams. And that would then make this piston significantly lighter than this. So the windows don't quite line up, but that's not important because your flow, you know, these things have flow on the sides, and I think it'll be fine. So my plan is very minimal port work on the cylinder. I'm going to try and get nearly everything with the piston, except for the exhaust. And I do have to raise those transfers, probably going to have to raise those transfers just a smidge. I don't want to raise them at all, and I'll probably not touch the lowers. This is how we're looking in here. Got that divider in there. It is a side-fed dual quad port setup, and yeah, I don't want to touch those transfers. So we'll see where everything lines up whenever I take material off of the piston. We'll see. That's all we can do is see. And yeah, maybe I'll just cut on the sides, you know, take some off right here in order to get my transfer height where I want them to be. Anyways, I like port jobs like this because it's fun. You know, I get to try different things and stuff. You know, if I ruin everything because that piston, I mess up and that piston doesn't work like I think it should, that's okay. I'll just replace the piston or just run the stock piston. Stock piston's good. So anyways, I'm going to get to it and see what we can come up with. Make sure I'm not overshooting my marks. This one here is the important mark because that one right there is for the exhaust side, and will that's how far I can go before I free port. Small cuts. Okay, so here we go. We got her all ported up. This thing has the bump stop, or it had the bump stop right there. I removed that, and then I just textured it. I did raise these sides right here up about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And I widened it just a smidge, you can see right there before it goes into the cylinder. The exhaust, we're set at 101. It's actually 100.8, 101. The upper transfers are at 124. Looking pretty good. I didn't touch the lowers at all, didn't do anything. I thought about rounding over those corners and everything, you know, like down here at the bottom, rounding that over and stuff. But, well, obviously, I decided not to. The piston. The crankshaft journals were actually hitting on the bottom side of the piston right here, right? So I had to clearance that out. So now it goes around. It's no problem. It's not hitting anything. Had to clearance that out. Took a lot off of the skirt of this piston, and then I still had to notch out right here for the intake, and that's how I got my intake duration. I did go ahead and take about 5/1000ths of an inch, probably about 8/1000ths of an inch off of this, and my squish is about 25/1000ths or 26/1000ths of an inch, and I decided to leave it at that. The ring that I'm running, I've decided to go ahead and use the bottom ring from the OEM setup. That way it's already nice and broke in, and these are good to go. So I don't have to worry about break-in time, and I figured the bottom ring would probably have less wear on it than the top ring. because you can see over here on the exhaust side where there was a little bit of carbon, maybe a little bit of heat, and so I decided to go ahead and just use the bottom ring. And you know, that way she's pre-broken in. Next thing I gotta do, I gotta measure this piston, so hold on. Okay, so stock setup, missing one ring, right? 65 grams, and this newly machined up 62. I hit it right on the nail, right on the head. So we got 3 grams lighter. As far as open flow and stuff, it doesn't have any, and you know, I don't think that it needs it. So anyways, but it is 3 grams lighter, which is nice. Everything counts whenever you're going at 12,000 RPMs, you know, and using this piston allowed me not to machine that cylinder at all. No machine work was done on the cylinder, not one bit. So if this doesn't work, I can just switch back to the stock piston and do the machine work like normal. But my feeling is this thing's going to run really well. 79 on the intake, 100.8 or 101 on the exhaust, and 124 on the transfers. Ding. And 26 thousandths on the squish.